So this is a course website. We already announced this at the beginning of the semester. So I just make it clear that this is the way page with the policy. Anything most of the students, I receive questions about grading schemes in my emails. So please, when you write the email, try to write a professional email with your passport. Don't try to write an email that is very hard to even to understand. Okay, so be straightforward to the point. You have the learning outcome. You are expecting you at the end of the semester to know these. Okay, so make sure you incrementally, as we go in the semesters, you contribute to one of these learning outcomes. Also, there is information about other instructors and the labs. The most important is our section number O, and we have to meet every time in the week, every week in the morning in these lectures, and we have only 5 labs. I receive many informations about changing the lab time. I have never received any notification that the lab time or the date is changing since fall 2019. So the lab date and time are the same. And the lecture time is the same since fall 2019. I'm not aware of anything. Even I contact the department regarding this, and they confirm to me there's nothing is changed. So if you have any any conflict in your schedule, please resolve it officially, because you need to attend the lab to do the lab test and to demonstrate your lab. And there is also the grading scheme, and you can see there's a lot of information based on the previous experience of instructor, what kind of question the student they might ask. It's already here in terms of policies, informations, documentations. Web Summit. This is where I want you to see. Here we're gonna use your passport to log in, and you're gonna see the lectures where you're gonna submit. For example, here you see it's 1920 winter. This is the winter term, and you're gonna select which course. We're gonna select 1022 O. This is our section, and from the assignment you can see the drop-down list. You have lab 1, lab 2, lab 3, lab 4, lab 5. So once you demonstrate in the front of the TA that your D1 is working, please go here, select lab 1, and then browse for the file that you would like, and you submit it. Once you submit the file, you can see them here. These are my file. I submitted even in the end of December. You can now browse again and submit another version. So let's say you work on D1 at home, you are satisfied. This is what I'm going to present it today on the lab. You submit it. In the lab, you open Web Summit, you download Java files, XML files, you open them, you copy paste on the apps that you build on the lab machines, you demonstrate to the TA. While you are demonstrating, you find that something problem. You modify the file. Now again, once you finish modification, you can again upload the Java file and XML file. It will override the previous version. So you can upload as many as you want, okay? Always the latest one will be updated. Uploading is very important to receive a full mark, and both partners are gonna receive the same mark. But upload is individual. Okay, this is regarding the Web Summit. Now let us start our lectures. Nothing there, I hope. Okay, perfect. So as you see, I'm trying to record the lectures every time, but I'm not sure about the quality of the recording, how much the recording is available. So I put here a YouTube. Whenever it's done, I try to post it on the YouTube, so you can see the lecture recording on the YouTube. This is the link, and this is the course model link. Again, the course model is the way where we're gonna post our lecture information. So let me just log in here to see. So if you don't have a York passport, which is really surprised me, because you should have the York passport, and you need the York passport to do the lab test. As you can see, we have, in my case, I have many courses, but this is the one that we are looking for. It's a common course model for all the sections. And as you can see, there is a note from other instructors too. So you have access to other lectures notes. So you can enrich your informations about what is other instructors are talking also in their classes. And I'm trying my best. You can see here, this is the lecture number 3. So this is the lecture I'm gonna do it today. So you can download these lectures. I'm trying sometimes to put these notes ahead of time. So please keep eye on the course model. So you might have the lecture note before the lecture even is started. So you can download them in your laptops and you can write any notes you like on these notes ahead of time. Or maybe you can sometimes, I will try on the weekend, so you can look at the lecture note in the weekend. And sometimes the lectures note, we couldn't finish all the notes, so you have a startup ahead of time. So that's next week, we're gonna start from this point. So still you have information ahead of time. Let us back. So we'll start our lecture today. Last time we discussed the concept of opening an API and apps and create the interface from the XML file, and we discussed some tags that related to the XML. And also we discussed what is the model view controls. So whenever you discuss the app, D1, D2, D3, up to D5, every time you build the app, keep this in your mind. What is the model? Where I'm going to put my classes, where I'm going to define my object, how I'm going to access the data, any external resources I'm going to access, that will be in the model. Now, view, how I'm going to present the data to the user. That is the view. How I'm going to make view and the model communicate with each other, exchange messages, exchange data, display the state of the model on the view. That is the control responsibility. How I'm going to listen to the user who's going to use my app, enter some informations, enter the weight and the height, then click the button of calculating BMI. So that is an event going to trigger some methods to be executed. How the control going to communicate between the view and the model. And also we discuss about Java basic program organization. We said whenever we create anything on the Java, we have to put it inside the class. And the class will be stored in the file, the Java file. Only one class per file in our course. And also every class should be linked to the package. Package is a directory. So directory will organize the packages. So all the classes related to D1 will be stored in one package. All the classes related to D2 will be stored in different package. So the package will organize everything. And also we discuss how we import the class. We would like to link the jar file, the one that is created by the author of this textbook, I2C, the jar. We see how we link it. And then how we use it. If we need to use any package or any class from that jar file, we see the import statement and we see the power of the import statement. And we mentioned that if I have a program where I have 100 import statements, and some students, they already finished their task with one import statement, the import statement does not have any running time complexity. So it doesn't mean anything, okay? Today, we're gonna start talking about basic Java keywords and data types, identifier, data type conversions, random color apps, and also we're gonna see some object-oriented in the Java. Today is very important lectures. I hope you give me your attention, and if you have any questions, let me know. Today, some of you already are familiar with other programming language. They know the data types. They know how to move from one data type to another data type from your prerequisite or from your different experience on the programming language. But now we're going to look at the data type in the Java, how the Java are treating the integers, doubles, float, and strings. Okay, for more information about Java basic keywords and data type, you can go to this link. It's from document.oracle.com. Now, as you can see today, we're gonna go over the built-in data types. Now, integer, long, double, characters, and string, and boolean. And here we say built-in data type, and later on we're gonna separate between what we call a primitive data type and object data types. As you can see, Java expert, they classify string as a built-in data type, but later on we're gonna separate things. We're gonna say that we have what we call a primitive data types, and we have an object data type. String, one of the object data types. And we're gonna discuss some keywords about static, class, public, private. Some of them we already know. The new, final, two strings, and the main function. We already saw this last time. We're gonna see some operations, and then we're gonna see the string operations. We're gonna go over the assignment.
What chapter is this in the textbook?
I think you are maybe look at chapter number 3. If you are attached to the textbook, let me just help you with that. Which chapters? You have the textbook with you? No. Okay. So let me answer your questions. This is chapter number 2. Good? So you can open chapter number 2 to page 76. Okay? You see what we call a declaration, declare, set, and go. So this is the data types. Okay? So if you have the textbook, this is the chapter number 2. Any other question? Okay, let's go. So we're gonna cover if statements, if else statements for loop, while loops. Also, we're gonna see the braces, parentheses, brackets, what the difference between them, comma, semicolon. Some of you already saw this in the previous lectures. And also we have the comparison, greater than, less than, equal, true, false, Boolean expressions, and arrays, length, and also the new in the arrays, math, sine, cosine, log, exponent, power, square. All these we're gonna go over it, maybe not in this lectures, okay, but in this course. Integer dot parse integers and double dot parse double. You already gonna use some of these in the D1. And also system.println or system.out.print or system.out.println. This is how you print the message to the console. So we're going to go over many of these on this semesters. Now, to be able to store any information, you need a variable. So Java variable is actually a mathematic, you can say it's a placeholders where you can define the variable in a certain type and you can place some information on that variables. So only information of that type you can store inside this variable. So let's say you define a variable of type Boolean. Boolean is true or false. So I can store only true or false on that variables. So based on the data type of the variables or the placeholders in my program, I can store informations. So to define the variable, we have to pick a name for the variables. The name should start with lowercase letters and contains letters, number, underscore. This is the example of declaring a variable. Boolean is the data type, built-in data type, a primitive data type from Java. The name of this variable is var p, and the value that we assign or store in this placeholder is equal to true, and we end that with a semicolon. This is a Java statement. The purpose of this Java statement, declare a variable, and the name of this variable is variable p, and we're going to use this during our programming to refer to this location on the memory. We name it var p, and we store a value is a true in that location. So int total, int is the data type, built-in integer data type from Java. So we define int total. So total is the name of the variable that we're going to use in our Java code. So you can pick any name as long as it starts with the lowercase, letters, number, underscore. And you can also combine many variables in the same one sentence. As you can see here, we define int, count, temp, and result, and between them we have a comma. So we define a three variables or a three placeholders in the memory, and we name this placeholder as count, temp, and result. What's the type of that space we reserve in the memory? Its type is int. And we're going to see later on this slide how many space on the memory we're going to take in terms of byte and bits for int data types. Now, if you want to define something constant and you don't want anyone later on in your code change it, use the word final. When you say final Boolean false Boolean is equal to false, you are saying this variable contains a value false and this is fixed. No one can change it. So whenever you add a final to the name of the variable, this is a constant. You cannot change this constant. So it's strongly suggested by Java expert whenever you define a variables or a placeholder that you're going to use later on in your programming is to initialize it. Even Java have some automata mechanism to initialize the variables, but don't rely on that because based on different architectures, if you run it in your laptop, you might get initialized with different value if you run it on the lab machines. So make sure to initialize the variable at the time of the declarations. Okay? As you can see, we define int sum is equal to 0. So we initialize the placeholder or the variable name sum with value is equal to 0. We define int is equal to base is equal to 32, comma max is equal to 149 with a semicolon at the end. So we initialize the variable at the time of the declarations. And that is the recommended way when you are doing Java programming. So you can declare a variable only once inside the method, and you will be surprised. I put it on the red because last semesters we have students declare many times on the variable and they submit their code in the lab test. The code will not compile. Java will always keep track what you are declaring inside the method. So the scope of the variable inside the method should be unique. The variable name should be unique. So don't duplicate the names, okay? Even the compiler will give you a hint for that. So you can declare a variable only once in the method and the scope of this variable between the braces, okay? If you go outside the braces, you can define the same name of the variable. If you start a new method, you can define another, the same name. But within the same method, the name should be unique. Now, in terms of the size, these are a primitive data types. As you can see, string is not one of the primitive data types. A primitive data types are not object data type. I want at the end of this lectures to be able to distinguish between what is the primitive data type, what is the object data types. Okay? So the primitive data types, these are the primitive data type defined by Java expert. No one can define Boolean the same as Boolean. There's a keyword. So no one can define a variable with the same name as the keyword even. So the size of the Boolean is 1 bit. And minimum is not applicable, maximum is not applicable. And we have the wrapping class. The wrapping class is the object version of the primitive data types. So if you would like, because this is an object-oriented programming, if you would like to work with everything as an object, use Boolean with P as capital. So everything is an object in that time. If you want to work with the primitive data type of Boolean, P should be small. And this is not an object data type. It's a primitive data type with the size is equal to 1. The size of the wrapping class object, I couldn't tell you how much. I don't know, based on the machine. But I can tell you, if you use Boolean as a primitive data type, the size is 1 bit. Char is a characters, is another way to represent the character, the letters. Okay, and we use the Unicode 0 as a minimum, and the maximum is Unicode 2 to the power 16 minus 1. The wrapping class is a full word character with a C as a capital. Byte is 8-bit, and short, int, long, float, and double. And you can see the difference between the float and doubles in terms of the size of the number of bit, and we are using IEEE 754 representations, which has sign, exponent, and floating numbers. So we're not going to dig deep on that, how this IEEE representation is. But I would like you to see the difference between int and long. 32-bit for int, 64-bit for long. And these are integer numbers, okay, with the sign. Okay. Now, when we say a data types, we are saying a set of values and set of operations on those values. Now, you can see the difference. There is a clear difference between Boolean and integer. When we define any variable of type Booleans, it's only 1 bit, either true or false. And there is a limited set of operations for that data type. Booleans, you can do and, or, negations, and these are the basic one, and from these you can generate XOR, NOR, whatever you like. But you cannot add or subtract or multiply or divide a Boolean data type. But you can do that with integer. Int is a 32-bit. Is a set of values. The range for this set of value is from minus 2 to the power 31, integer value, there is no decimal points, to plus 2 to the power 31 minus 1. So it's a 2's complement representations. So you have minus part and you have positive part. And you have different set of operations. You cannot do and or negation of integers. But you can do addition, subtractions, divisions, multiplications. And these are the basic for operations. Okay? So, do you see the difference? So when we say a data type, we are emphasizing about 2 things. The set of values and the set of operation on these values. Do you have any question? Yes.
So what would be like the definition of a primitive data type?
These are the primitive data types. Primitive data types is a set of values and a set of operation on these values. Okay. So these are another slides for the data type with some examples values. For example, for a characters, the char is a data type, represent set of values. What we a set of values that can store inside char data type is a characters, and these are example of the characters. And we can do what set of operation we can do for the character, compare characters. Is this is a character less than the other characters, okay, or not? We can do that because we are using a Unicode. A string data type, and I would like here to mention a string is not a primitive data type, is an object data type, and it's what kind of set of value we can use for a string data type, built-in data type, is a sequence of characters. And example, hello world, CS is a fun, and what we can do on operation, we can concatenate characters together. We cannot subtract characters. sequence, sorry, string. We can concatenate strings. We cannot subtract. We cannot divide strings. We cannot multiply strings. We can only concatenate strings. Integers is integers, and this example 17, 12,345. We can do additions, subtractions, multiplication, divisions on these integers, doubles, Boolean, for example, the last one is a true values, either true or false, and we can do and, or not. These are the basic operations. From these basic operations, we can generate what we call XOR, XNOR, or any other set of operations. Basic definitions and terminology. So the variable is the name to refer to a value. So whenever you go to the Java programming, you declare Boolean and you give a name of the variable. So this is a name. You're going to use it later on in your code. A literal is a value. Is an initial value you assign to this variable. Okay? A declaration of the variable associated with the type. You cannot go to the Java and tell the Java compiler to declare a variable without telling me what is the data type associated with this variable. So you cannot say, I want to define variable without mentioning in the front or to the left of the name of the variable the data type. Okay? You have to give the data type to the variables. These are examples for assignment statement. Assignment statement is associate the value to the variable. As you can see here, we define int A, we define int B. Those are A and P are the name of the variable, the name we assign. So when we define int, we reserve on the memory 32-bit. 32-bit is equivalent to how many byte? 4 byte. So these 4 byte, we reserve it on the memory, but how are we gonna use it on our Java code? So when I say int A, I go to the compiler, I will give a clear instruction, I need int, so please go to the memory and reserve 4 byte for me. And later on in my code, I need to use this location. How I'm gonna use this location? How am I going to use these 4 bytes? I give an instructions, I need 4 bytes on the RAM. Later on, how am I going to use these 4 bytes? Any suggestions? You have to give a name. So in our case, int A, these 4 bytes, we give a name A to this location. So later on in our code, whenever we say A, the Java compiler will know that we need to go to these 4 bytes and bring the value, please, from that location. So we associate the location on the memory 4 byte to a name that we are friendly, we can use it on the Java code. We define int A, int B. So we define 4 byte, and the first one we assign A, the second one we assign B, and then we say 1234 assign this value to that location of named A. Compiler knows where is these 4 byte. And later on in our code, we know that A is equal to what? 1234, B is equal to 99. Now, we define a new variable, int C. So, compiler will go to the memory and define another 4 bytes. But how he gonna assign the value? He need to go to visit the memory twice. First time to visit the A and bring the value from A, then visit B, bring the value from B, add them together and assign it to C. Any question? Okay, I would like you to have 1 minute, trace the variable values after each statement. So you have a class, as you know, you cannot throw the main methods in the Java without putting it inside the class. So this is a complete example. We define public class example 8, so it's a public, everybody can see it, everybody can access it, and can use it. And there is a main method inside this class, so this is executable class. We can execute it. and public static void main with a one argument string. String is a data type, and we need square bracket to indicate this is an array of a string. We're going to cover arrays later on, and the name of this variable is args. Now, you have these statements, int A, int B, int T, and then we assign. Can you take 1 minute and give me a table? What will be the value of this location on the memory? Take 1 minute, either use your computer, your cell phones, your paper and pencils, and try to trace the execution of this problem. And then we're going to share the solution in the next slide. Okay, so let us see. So at the beginning, we have int A, so we define a location inside the memory for 32 bits, 4 bytes, and we assign 1234 to that locations. At this point, B and C are not, B and T, sorry, they are not declared yet. Now we have int P is equal to 99. So we have now already declared P, no problem, there's no change. But we are defining another 32 bits inside the memory, and we assign a value 99. Now int T is equal to A, so we define another space, 4 bytes. We assign the value is equal to the same as the value of A. So the T will be equal to 1234, and then A is equal to P. We're going to override the value on P, A, but there's no additional space. We're not going to reserve a new space because we already did that. So the location of the memory of 4 bytes is already reserved, and we already tag A as a name for that space. And the value, when we say A is equal to P, that means the right side going to assign to the left side. So the right side is P. The value of P, we're going to store it inside A. And the same thing, P is equal to T, so the value for the T will be assigned to P. Any question? Yes?
Okay, so once we're done with T, can it terminate the location, like
Look here, the good thing about Java, they have a mechanism they call a garbage collector. This is an auto mechanism. So whenever you are trying to code something and you declare some variable and you never visit that variable anymore, Java can automatically take care of destroying T. You're not using T anymore, okay? Or you define an object or a class, and then you define an instance or an object from that class, declare it, and as you go on, you don't need to care about destroying it. Not like C or C++. You need to deallocate the memory once you don't need it. Okay? So Java, they have a mechanism called a garbage collector, but this is not our scope. Any other question? Okay, so declaring a variable is instructing the compiler, as we said, to set aside a portion of the memory, and this portion of the memory will be compatible with the data type. So if I am defining a Boolean, I will reserve only 1 bit. So as you can see here, we define int count. So we are instructing the compiler to reserve 4 bytes for us, and we assign a name or a tag a name to that locations inside our code, a meaningful name that we are friendly with, okay, count to that locations. If we define double is equal double length, and we don't assign any value to that location even, still the compiler will go to the RAM and memory and reserve 8 bytes. So no value has been put yet on the memory, but the variable is already have reserved, instruct the compilers. So just quickly about the data type, these slides just to summarize what we already discussed. The Boolean data type, what the values, these are literals value true or false. You can write true or false and assign these values. And the operation and, or, and not. And these are the symbols that you're going to use inside your Java code to indicate that you are using and, or not. These are example of the result of having a variable a, assign a value true. When you negate it, it becomes false. If you have a and p and you try to make and between them and both are false, you have false. And I think most of you are familiar with what is and what is or. If you're not, please go and revisit these topics. String data type, again, we mentioned that string data type is not a primitive data type. It's an object data type where a sequence of character assigned to a variable. And Java expert create string for data type for us. So we're not creating it. Later on in your course, you're going to create your own data types, but string is created by Java expert and we're going to use it frequently. As you can see on the D1 and D2 up to D5, you are using string to communicate with the view. So string is a data type, is a sequence of character, and these are literal examples, and we can do concatenations. How we're going to do concatenation on the Java code? We use a plus sign. Plus sign, whenever we see a plus sign between two strings, we indicate that we're going to concatenate these two strings together. These are example of an expression hyperb. When you do concatenations, simply you are creating another string with these two substrings concatenating to each other. And we pay attention here to the double quotations. So whenever we define a string on the Java code, we use double quotations and we put the value inside these double quotations. So double quotation is very important and the compiler will prevent you from continue if you don't have the double quotations. So 1, 2, and 3, these values seems they are integer value, but once we put a double quotation around them, they are become a string value. Even they are only one character inside, but the Java will understand any double quotation as a string data type. So 1 will be a string data type, 2 will be a string data type, and plus 1 a string data type, it will create a concatenating string as 1 to 1. The same thing for the other values. Do you have any question? Any question about string data types? There's only one operation we can do on the string data type, is a concatenations. How are we going to represent this inside Java code? By plus sign. So whenever we see two strings with a plus sign, that means we concatenate these two strings. Okay, we use this actually for input and output. So user view normally are inputting, whenever you input to the apps, you are using string data type. Whenever you're displaying to the user, you have to translate the built-in data type, either double or integers to a string, then presented. So it's like an intermediate conversion between the view and the model. So string data type is what we call a mutable string data type. You cannot change the value once you create it. Even the Java try to confuse you. How I created, but now I assign another value to it. But actually Java is very smart. Whenever you create a string, it's assign a fixed value. And if you try to change the value, it is actually trying to destroy the old one and create a new one. But you think that this is an automated process. So you are working with a string data type and work with the string data type as a primitive data type. But actually this is not true. A string is an object data type, but it's an immutable data type. In 2030, advanced topic, you will be creating your own data type, your own class, and there is a recipe to create a class that is immutable. So no one can change the value once you create it, okay? So we can use two strings, okay, and plus operations. Let a string be a string data type. Once you define a string data type, let's say str is the name of the variable of the data type of a string, you can use a length of a string data type. So you can tell me how many characters inside this string. That is can be only done if this type is immutable, and that's why the Java expert defined this for us, data type string. So we can use any variable of type string. We can use a string that variable name dot length, and you can see length with parentheses, not str.length, with the parentheses. So this is the name of the method, a method that takes no arguments and retain the number of characters inside the string. And we can take also, there's a substring. And there is a full chapters on this textbook about the string. We're gonna discuss more about string because it's very important data types. Int data type, as we mentioned, is a two's complement, negative and positive, from 2 to the power 31 to 2 to the power 31 minus 1. And you have the literal value as any integer value without decimal point. You can add, subtract, divide, and you can have a modulus, and also you can have a remainders, which is how we can do add? We do a plus sign. So see, the Java compiler understand whenever you are using a plus sign with the data type of a string, it has a different purpose. It's a concatenation. But if you are using a plus sign with int, it's an addition operations, not a concatenation. Okay? Subtractions. You can do multiply, divide, and you can ask a remainders of divisions too. So these are an example of an operations where you can use 3 plus 5 equal to 8, 5 minus 3 is equal to 2, 3 times 5 is equal to 15, 5 divided by 3. This is an integer division, not a floating point division or a double division. So this is an integer division. You only care about the quotient, you don't care about the remainders. So 5 divided by 3 is equal to 1. If you want the remainder, you can ask 5 and the percent sign 3, then give me only the remainder. I don't interested on the quotient. And 1 divided by 0, it's a compile time error or a runtime error. Do you see the difference between a compile time error and runtime errors? Did anyone have any doubt or still confused about what we mean when we say a compile time error? A compile time error, you cannot execute without fixing it. Runtime error, unfortunately, you're going to see a blue screen or a crash or something. It allows you to run, but then the error will appear at the runtime. So passing through the compilation, the compiler will not be able to check it. The only thing you're going to see a blue screen, crash, or restart is necessary to be able to proceed. Okay? Good. And this is very important. Now we have set of operations for a data type. Yes? So we say that a data type, what is the data type? Can anyone remind us what is the data type is? A definition for a data type. Set of values and set of operation on that values. So integer here, we are taking int add as an example, and we have a set of operations. We have addition, subtractions, multiplication, division, and remainders. So once we have this set of operation, the first question come to my mind or anyone is how are we going to order which one is the high priority than the other one if they are appear on the same sentence or same statement. So if we have a multiplication and subtractions, or always multiplication has high precedency about any other operations. So multiplication and divisions has high priority, you have to evaluate them at the first. If you see multiplication and division, you have to start from left to the right. If all the statements are filled with multiplication and division, you start from left to the right. But if you have multiplication and subtraction, as you see in the first one, we start from multiplication first, then we do the subtractions. Look at the second one. We have addition and divisions. Division has high precedence than the addition. Addition and subtraction have the same priority. They are under multiplication and divisions. So we're gonna evaluate the division first, then we're gonna evaluate the additions. Now you can see 3 minus 5, 3 minus 2. All of them is subtractions operations. So which one gonna start first? We're gonna start from left to the right. And if you want to force Java compiler to evaluate something before the other, use the parentheses, as you can see in the last one. The last one is saying 3 minus 5 should be evaluated first because they are within the parentheses, and then subtract 4. Question? You're going to start from left to the right.
How about in the start?
We're going to come to it. Now, you have double data type. Again, we have a set of operation on data type is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and remainders. You can ask. And when you see this 6.022 e to the 23, this is exactly the same as 6.022 times 10 to the power 23. So if you see this value inside the question for the lab test, so 6.22 E23, this is exactly the same as 6.022 10 to the power 23. Okay? E is represent the exponent part. This is an example of addition, subtractions, and dividing of double. You can ask for a square root for the double here, and you will use the math anyway. That's because it's retained there. Okay. Now I will go to the Java math libraries. Java math library is one of the public classes created by Java experts, and we categorize this class as a static class. We cannot create object from the math class, but we can use some set of methods inside this class by just calling math dot, and you will see the list of methods that are available for you. And these methods are defined for different data types, not only for a certain data type, but is defined for different data type, integer and double and float. So this is an example of methods. As an absolute value, we abbreviate it as APS, and you give a value, and you retain another value with positive sign. So if I take a negative minus 2, it will give me 2. Now, as you can see, the method has a retain type as a double, and is taken argument as a double, but this just an example. This absolute value or absolute method is defined for int data type, is defined for a long data type, is defined for a float data type. So what you see here in the slide is just an example. And most of the time, you're going to use absolute with the double data type. So that's why I put in this slide the double as an example. But max, you can ask max between 2 integer values, and will retain an integer value. Okay? You can ask minimum between 2 float points, float values, and you have float as a retained data type. Also, you can ask power. You give double A and double P, and this exactly as A to the power P. You can ask log. This actually log, it's a logarithmic, natural logarithmic log. It's not log to the base 10, log to the base E. And you have exponent, and this is equivalent to E to the power A. You have a round. You can round the double to the nearest integer. You can ask random. Random will generate a random numbers between 0 and 1, where 1 is excluded. As you can see on this slide, the 1 is excluded. So only 0 up to 0.9999. So you generate a random number. You can ask for a square root for any numbers. Again, what you see on this slide is for double data type, but you have it for integer also, and long and float. Can we see this, like, if I tell you this is like a multiple choice, I told you when we're gonna use Boolean square root Boolean A. The choice is whenever you want to do the square root of Boolean data type, not applicable, compilation errors, or whenever you want. There's no such kind of operations on the square root for a Boolean. You can do AND, or negations for the Boolean data type. So you cannot take a square root of Boolean data type. The answer is not applicable. You cannot do this. You don't have this even defined on Java. Okay? Unless if you want to create your own data type, okay? And square root at that time will has different meaning. Okay? Then the square root operation will have different meaning from the meaning that we are understand from the mathematics. Okay? That square root of 4 is equal to 2. At that time you define a square root as some kind of operations for your imaginary data type. Compilation error. Okay, we will switch to okay. So this is an example where you define, whenever you want to create, okay, seems I have to get rid of the presentation to be able to see this, okay. I want to ask you to evaluate. So as you can see, we define a class. This class is EX1 class, and it's inside a package. This is the package name, and we say that CA represent a folder, your Q would represent a folders, and EECS1022 represent a folder up to a folder where EX1 is a folder. Inside it, there is a class called EX1. Now, this class has only one method, is a main method, and as you can see, I define int A is equal to 40C, okay? Now, if I ask you to, what will be the result of this operation? I start A divided by P and assign it to C. So A is an int data type, P is an int data type. I take A divided by P and then assign it to C. Then I can see that this data type, this operation is for integer data type, and the value is going to be assigned to int data type. I can print it out to the user, And I can do x divided by y and assign it to z. X is a double data type, y is a double data type, and z is defined as a double data type, but I didn't assign any value to z at the time of initializations. So this will take x divided by y and assign it to z. And this is double data type. I can print it out and see what is the result. And even this in the textbook, they will let you know how you can print it with different format.
So completing any math with two different hidden values, like the double or, and you're going to get an error, right? So if I go double A, yada yada, and I go in, B, yada yada, and
No, we will come to that. If you are trying to assign integer to double, that was your question?
no, I'm just trying to, do math between an integer and double.
You can do math between integer and double. You can mix up. You can say that x plus p. And that will come across in the next slide. We will see Java, how the Java will do it. Java will try to automatically to widen the data type as much as it can. So Java will do the widening or promoting, what we call, we're going to cover that later on. So you can do the methods, and I encourage all of you to try this. At the first time when I was a student like you, it was very hard for me to understand how the compiler will understand the way of doing the operations and storing them. So I encourage all of you to take simple example as you can see here on this screen and try out to do this operations for the double and integers and remainders and ask all these operations and see what is gonna be output. And you can run this, run the main, you don't need to run the app, and you can create this with what we call is create an object with an empty, with no activity, not empty activity, with no activity. So you don't need activity, you don't need the user, you just need the Java. As you can see the output. You will be experience the situation how the Java compilers evaluate these operations for different data types.
What if you did the system.out.println line of C without you assigning anything to it? What does it default to?
What do you mean? The default will be 0. If I print C here, so C is not initialized. In my computer here, C will be what? 0. Okay? And, oh, what's wrong? Did I do anything? What's problem? Because we need to print, this will be explained now. C, isn't it C? It's not defined. There is a problem in the compilations. This is a primitive data type. I'm trying to print it. What's the problem? It's undefined yet? seems Android Studio is preventing you from printing anything without initializations. But if you take this and you run it with the clips, or even you run it with the commands, it will be printed out. Okay, but seems Android Studio is integrating some extra checkpoints, okay, with the variables. So let us follow what we discussed on the slide about recommendation. Whenever you define a variables, try to initialize the primitive data types at the time of declarations, okay? But it's, as I told you, if you don't initialize it, there's no problem, but the value, as you can see, you assign the value for based on A divided by P. Okay. Now we will see the APIs. Now, whenever you define the jar files or you define your class, we're not gonna cover this on this course. It will be covered in 2030, which is called Java documentation. Whenever you define a class, you need to put some documentations, okay, to let the end user or the one who is going to use your Java code understand what you are trying to do, what this class is doing, what this method is performing, what is the input, what is the output. As you can see, this is the API, what we call it for a documentation for the jar file, I2C jar file that is created by the author. On this list, you will see all the classes. One of these classes is utility classes. Inside this class, as you can see, this class is a public class, utility class. It's extended from object. All the classes we're going to create is extended from the parent class, which is an object, even if we're not mentioning that explicitly on the declarations. So the name of the author, the version of this class, also the set of methods that are inside this class. Okay, these are the methods that are defined on this class. So you have the great common divisors method that we used last time is to determine the great common divisors between two integers. And you have int A and int B. And you have the factorials, you have the crash, and all these methods. If you want to read more, you just press on this one. As you can see here, we have public, static, double, factorial, int, n. So this method is a public, is accessible by anyone. It's a static method, so you don't need to create an object to access this method. The only thing you need is utility dot and factorials. It will retain a double data type, and it will receive int as input. And there is a condition here, n should be not negative. So this is what we call a precondition. This is as a programmer, you don't need to do anything for the preconditions. So it's about the user who's going to use the factorial. If the user send -1, it's his responsibility to do that. But he will expect, you cannot guarantee what the output will be. You are mentioning to the end user that if you want to use my method, which is a factorial in this case, it's a public, it's a static, and it's retained double. It's receive integers, and this integer should be a positive integer. And we're going to do the factorial, mathematics. And it's a throw. Now, you are telling him, I did extra precautions. Whenever you send me a negative numbers, I'm going to throw a runtime error, runtime exception. Okay? And we're going to see the exception later on. Let me go back to the slides. Between you as a programmer and the user who's going to use your classes. And the way you tell the users how he can use your code, methods, classes. You give some documentations, okay, about them. As you can see here, this is the list of the classes that is inside ITC. I encourage all of you to look at them. Some of these classes you're going to use later on D2 and D3, D4, and some of them you're going to use it even for D1. And we're going to ask you in the exam to use some of these methods. So you need to know what you have in ITC. And also you need to know how to link it to your apps. So in ITC, this is an example for utility class, as I show you. It's about the class itself. It's a utility class, it's a public, it's a static class, and there's a static methods inside it, and you have a documentation about the authors, the version of this class. Let's say the factorial is one of the method that we are interested with. We can click on the factorial and we see the detail API. In this detailed API, we see that declaration, the header of the method. The header of the method is a public static double factorials with int n as an input. We also see the parameter sections. The parameter section tell us about n. It should be not negative. And the factorial of the operation, retain type of factorials, which will retain double. And also, if this method throw any exceptions, we can see it here if there are any exception thrown. So in case if you forget about the factorial is evaluated as n factorial is equal to n times n minus 1, n minus 2 up to 1. And we have the base case factorial of 1 is equal to 1. Some of the mathematicians say factorial of 0 is the base case where it's equal to 1. It will not make any difference. Okay? So factorial of 2 is equal to 2 times 1. Factorial of 3 is equal to 3 times 2 times 1. So this is, let's say, this is some kind of really a real life scenario. Someone told you, give me a program, give me a method that evaluates the factorials. Later on, you're going to do some programming for big things, do integration, do differentiation, do whatever is you like with the mathematics, you can do it. Okay? You can do double integrations, triple integrations, do Fourier transform, do frequency domain. So you have a real-time problem described by a text or described by mathematical equations. You need to transfer this problem statement from the text or a mathematical equations to a programming, okay, statement. So this is a real life scenario where we have to write a method that evaluate the factorials. This is a version that I write for myself. As you can see, there is a difference between this version and the version that is provided by the author. The difference in the header is clear. It's the same public static, but the retain type is int. The retain type for the author is double. For me is int. And the name is find factorial, I give int. As you can see, I didn't throw any exception. So that's another difference. The only thing I'm going to do, I'm define int and the factorial is equal to n, and I'm doing for loop. Later on, we're going to cover for loops in detail. And I'm going to show you from last year a very amazing for loops that's written by students. Okay? And there's some disappointing for loops also written by students. So you can avoid the same mistakes. So you see here the for loop start from n minus 1 up to I is greater than or equal to 1, and you decrement every time. Every iteration you decrement by 1. And every time you update the value that's stored inside the factorial variables. Factorial times I. And at the end, you finish the loop, you retain the value to the user. So this is the utility class. I can switch to, I don't know where I am. Okay, thinking. I have it here or I have it on, okay. I have it in 02 or 01. I don't know. Yeah, I have it here. Good. So as you can see here, we import the package, but we cannot do this statement if we didn't link the jar file to the library folders. So you have to create the apps and link the jar file to the library folder, and then you can do this import statement. As you can see in this important statement, we are importing all the classes inside this package, I2C. So every class will be imported. We are able to use utility.create common divisors. Now, I'm gonna uncomment this, okay? And I define my method. So this is the main method, and this is my new method for calculating the factorials. And I'm gonna run this method now. So I would like you here to see the difference between utility.factorials and hello.factorial. Why I was able to use hello.factorials here without creating an object of a class. Because when I define my method, I define it as public static. So I can use the name of the class. What's the name of the class? Is hello. So hello dot, then I see the list of a static variable or a static method. In this case, we have factorials. As you can see the difference. In terms of the value here, there is no difference. Both are retaining 120, but there is a big difference on term of data types. The one that is created by the author retain double data type. And you see the difference between the double data type and the integer data type. There will be a short answer on the lab test 1, and we will ask you to retain a value and to tell us what's the data type of that value. So you need to practice on programming to see the difference on data type. And that is the purpose of this example, to show you what's the difference in terms of the printing. And I'm going to ask you, give me the value as you see it on the printing on the console. So here in the console, we see the difference between the 120 as an integer data type and 120 as a double data type. Any question? Okay. Okay, so this is our method that we create, and when we run, we see that the difference between the two data types. Okay, and why we are able to say hello.find factorial, because we define find factorial as a static methods. Okay, static method, we can access this static method without creating an object from the class, and the class that we create here is hello. Yes.
Yeah, so why do you think it's double and not both?
Why are you saying what?
The first value, 120.0, we're saying it's double, right?
Yes.
Why are we not saying it's both?
Why? You ask the author. We explain it. Look here. What is this? I want you to give me full attention in the class. Okay? What is the retained data type? Excellent. So why we are saying it's double? Because the programmer who programmed this method told us, this method, if you're going to use my method, you're going to receive only double. You're not going to receive float. You cannot assume a float. If I want to change it, I create my own version. I would put the retain type as a float. Then I would put this is a float. Okay? There is no assumption. You are a programmer. You have to program everything. This is an instruction. And this happened a lot of times. On the lab test, in the student's company, I was intending to do this. But this is what you write. This is what you really wrote in the exam. There's no intention. This is a machine. You as a programmer, you have to tell the machine what is the type of input, integer. So if you send double, it will not be accepted. What's the type of return value? Is double. I cannot say, I will say the return type is integer. You can cast it, you can do the conversion. You're going to see this later on. So there's no assumption. This is a programming. You have to give a specific instruction to the computer, and you have to tell in documentation what's the data type. So why we are saying it's double? Because it's written by the author of this method, that is the return type is double. Okay? Good. So the fundamental operations that is defined for a method type allow us to compare the values. So always whenever we are comparing the values between, you have two integer value, you need to know which one is the greater than the other one, which one is the smaller than the other one. Always the comparison operation retain a Boolean data type. So there is no integer data type from the comparison operations. So these are the comparing operations. Equal, you can ask if 2 is equal to 2, that will retain a true. Always the retained data type from the comparison operation or a comparing operations is a Boolean data type. And we know the Boolean data type has two values, false or integers. As you can see, we can ask 2 is equal to 3 and will retain false. And there is not equal, less than, there is a difference between asking less than, 5 is less than 5. What's the value of 5 less than 5? False. 5 is equal to 5, not less than 5. Okay? So, there's a difference between less than or equal. 5 less than or equal to 5, that's true. But 5 is not less than 5. 5 is equal to 5. The same thing, greater than, 2 is greater than 3. That's false. 3 is greater than 2. Greater than or equal. 4 is greater than or equal to 4. That's true. So just to summarize, the data type is a set of values and set of operation on those values. And commonly we are using the built-in data type, the Boolean, string, int, and double data type. And I'm emphasizing here on knowing what is the primitive data type, what is the object data type, string as an object data type. The only one on this list as an object data type. Everything is a primitive data type. If you would like to use with a version of object data type from the primitive data type, then you know the running class where you define an object from Boolean by using P as a capital. Okay, yes?
The object was what, string?
String, the object data type, is not a primitive data type. Any other question? Okay, this is an example for a literal values. For a characters, cards, you put one quotation. So the compiler, when you see one quotation with A, understand this is a character data type, will assign it to a character data type. Okay? It's invalid to write an empty characters inside Java. A string, you need double quotation. So I would like you to, in this slide, to understand the difference between the character data type and the string data type. So the Java, whenever you see one quotations, this is a character data. You cannot have a sequence of characters inside one quotation. You need to put double quotation to make it clear this is a string. And these are literal values for string. And you can see you can define an empty string, but you cannot define an empty characters. It's clear? Good. So an integer value, this is a literal value. This is an example, 0, minus 123, whatever is other integer values, no decimals. And this is a double literal values. And there's a decimal point, as you can see. And this is one of the things. The last thing is, as you can see, is 1.23456e minus 2. If you write this in your Java code, this is equivalent to saying 1.23456 10 times 10 to the power minus 2. Okay? So there is an integer part and there is a fraction part inside the double. Now, this is slide to emphasize about the difference between the string data type and the character data type. So the string, double quotations, the character is one quotation. So the double quotation with A inside, this is a string, is not equal actually to one quotation. So if you think that, oh, I will define a string where it's contain only one character, but I will define it as a double quotation A, and then this should be equivalent or equal to one quotation with A. What do you think? This is wrong. You cannot do this. stop doing this and remember this. Will be a question on the exam for this. And I'm telling you, some of you will answer incorrect. Do you have any questions? Do you understand the difference and the consequences of defining a string and characters? Remember, when you declare a variable, you have to tell us what is the data type of that variable. So if you define a string, it's a sequence of characters. I can define an empty string, but I cannot define an empty characters.
Is it possible when you declare a string, you can initialize it as one definition of two characters?
Yeah, you can use this plus sign, but you have to convert the character to string. Now, I didn't try it, or I tried, but I don't remember the result. It might gonna come across the next slides where the Java gonna automatically understand what you are trying to do. So might Java understand that you are trying to put two characters together, so it's making a widening for the data type and will assign it to a string data type. It's worth to try it, okay? And these are the common operation on the Java, just to summarize. And you can see here we have a special one, plus plus, an increment. So you're just adding plus one. Rather than making a variable equal to the same variable plus one, you can add plus plus or minus minus, and you can have pre or post increment. So you can have two choices. And, okay, good. Java escape sequence. This is important. So we have some escape character with backslash. So you see this, like you want a space, backslash with T, backslash with N, backslash with a one quotation, backslash with double quotation, that you want to escape. You want to let the Java print out to the console double quotation. You want backslash. This will let the Java print backslash. So this is like a special, meaningful for these special escape sequence, which is the backslash as a tab, new line, a backslash to print single quotation or a double quote. Okay. Any question about escape sequence? Good. Okay. Now let's go to the operation and things about the operations. So whenever you perform operation, you need what we call an operand. We say the operand is the input for the operations. For AND, for addition, you need two inputs. Okay, so this is a basic example of a numeric operation where 1.1 plus 0.34, it's adding two double numbers and the result will be a double numbers. Okay. Now, you divide 13 divided by 4. So you see that the value, what is the value of 13 is int. What the value for 4 is int. You see the difference now. As I show you in the running, when I print 120.0, we say this is a double. So here is the 13. 13 is int. Divided by 4 is an int. And the result will be 3. There's no remainders. Okay? Now, there is a difference here. 13.0, we'll understand it as a double. Okay? We're not going to go to float. Assume everything point as a double, no float. But if you assume as a float, it will not make any difference because we are interested in the value. So 13.0 divided by 4. So you have a double divided by int. What's the result will be? Double. Okay? This is a remainder. 13 remainder of 4 will be 1. Okay. This is a rational operations, with a comparison operation. We are asking as a 3 less than or equal to 4. This will be what? True. 5 less than 3, false. 56 is equal to 34, that's false. Okay. This is type of operation where we have a characters are involved, string. string are involved, and we're trying to make a concatenation between the string. How are we going to do that? We use a plus sign. So your plus a space string plus university. This is equivalent to generate another string with your university. We have a double quotation. I emphasize on a double quotation. Yes. It's worth to try it. Okay? It's worth to try. If you have a string plus cat type, you put the plus sign between them, is you're going to have receive a compilation error, or you're going to receive a string data type. Okay, that's a space. Now, based on the discussion that we have, can you take 1 minute and fill the blank? Test your knowledge. It's good to test your knowledge, okay? And based on what we discussed right now, we define A, we define C, we define P, and we try to evaluate A divided by P. Okay, write it down and we will compare. Take 1 minute. Now, if I give you a question like this on the lab test, how the way that you can answer? Can anyone suggest the way? Pencil and paper? If you are sure about your background, you study very well, you don't need to open Android Studio to answer. If you're still confused, you don't know what is it, open the Android Studio as I show you in the previous slide, where you can define. At that time, you see the difference between the students who are read and understand very well. You will save time. You don't need to open Android Studio on the exam. So he will complain, the time was too much short. I was not able to complete everything. No, we designed the exams to test things in appropriate time. So always the question is appropriate with the time. But you decide to open Android Studio and take these statements and write it down, and you know that Android Studio will take time. Okay? So you can answer it by pencil and paper. I know what I'm going to do. I understand exactly. I try at home many examples. I understand how Java will all these questions. If I have two strings together, what gonna the result? If I have a string with character, what the result? String with double, what the result? If I have a character, two character, and I try to add them together, what's the result? Will be a character, not a string. Okay? Because Java will understand the character as an integer. And we will have a separate this. But I encourage you to try it. Sometimes you ask me questions, somehow, yes, I forget the answer, but sometimes I know the answer, but I encourage you to try it. Okay? So let us see. What will be? So, what's the first one? Any suggestions? Yes? Good. Second one? Okay, so let us all together. 0. Then z is equal y divided by x. 0.115. 0 divided by a. 0. A divided by 0. Runtime error. Remainder from a divided with 4. I mean p is 4. Now the remainder between p and a. What? Yes. Remainder between 0 and a. 0. This remainder, last one, error. Okay, good. Now we're going to go quickly about the identifier and the name convention style. This is just, you have to understand what's the name convention, because you are, as a programmer, as we mentioned at the beginning of this lectures, you're going to work with team. The team that you work with him, they need to understand to each other. So whenever we define a class, we have to follow some style. Whenever we define a variable, we have to follow some styles, okay? Naming convention So identifier is the name of the variable that you define either for the class or a method or a constant or the variable inside. So the identifier is any arbitrary long sequence of characters as long as you have using a letters, a digits, and underscores, and a dollar sign. These are the name for the identifiers. And must start with the letters, underscore, or a dollar sign. Must not start with a digit, and should not be conflict with the keyword. So you cannot define a variable called class, because class is a keyword, or a for loop, for, or int. So avoid defining a keyword variables. So these are identifiers. You can use this identifier to define variable, constant, methods, or classes. These are valid quantifiers. When we say quantifier, we refer to what? Either the name for the class, the name for the variable, the name for a constant in your Java program, or the name for the variables. Now, these are valid identifiers. These are invalid. Okay? Invalid. Now, more convention about the identifier for the classes. If you are defining a class name, try to start with the title. It's like a title. Capitalize the first letter of each word. Okay, these are a valid name for classes. If you try to define a name for a variable or a method, use the lowercase. But if there is a combined, like first name, the first is small, but the name is capital. Okay, average of class. So average is a small, then the remaining is capital. Constant, always capital letters. Okay, there is no compilation error if I use a constant as a small letters, but it's a convention. So whenever you work with a team, both you and your partners understand this is a capital letters, so this is a constant. Okay. Recall that an assignment is assigning a value to the variable, and the variable is like a placeholder in the memory. We define int a, so we go to the memory, we reserve 4 bytes, and in our programming we name this space as a, and assignment operation is equal sign, not equal, is equal sign. So always on the assignment operation, the one on the right hand, you're going to evaluate it. Sometimes it's an expression, like assigning int c is equal a plus b. You go to the right hand side, you evaluate the right hand side, and you assign it to the left hand side. And should be always with the same data type. So if the result of operation on the right hand side retain a Boolean, and you try to assign the Boolean to double, I don't know what the result will be. Or if they are defined double and you do additions on the right side, I'm not sure what's going to happen, because this is not consistent. Okay, and we know that the data type is a set of values and set of operation on that values. So we know the double is only accept true or false, and you try to do 2 plus 5 equal to Boolean a. I don't know. What do you think will be happen? Crash, runtime error, compile error? Try it and see what you got. Okay, so this is an example of valid assignments. I have a string on data type, and I have str as a name of variable is a valid name of a quant identifier. Equal is assignment, not equal. Equal is different things. Equal, and then double quotation with some sequence of characters in this case. And look at the one in the bottom. This is invalid assignment. Is that right? Why? We're going to go to the right hand side and evaluate it. We end up with maybe integers, and we assign it to. Okay, good. Any question? So we have to make sure that how the assignment operation work on Java. Good. This is an example where int I is equal to 23 and int j is equal to I. So in the right hand side is a literal value is equal to 23. We see the example of our literal values. And then on the second one is a right hand side is a name of a place on the memory, which is called I in our Java code. So we go to that location, fetch the value, and assign it to J. Now, what do you think gonna happen here? We're gonna go and evaluate the expression, whatever is the expression on the right hand side, and assign it to J. So there's no difference. That's how the assignment operation is working. So we define I is equal to 23, then we define J is equal to I times 2. So we're gonna evaluate I times 2 on the right hand side as a complex expression, whatever is there, but this is only multiplication, and we assign it. This is the one where I want you to focus. Java data type conversions. Java is smart enough or not smart enough. I don't know. I will leave it for you. You try it and you see how much Java is smart enough. Java tried to do widening conversion automatic for you. It's a phenomena, it's called a promotion. Look at the expression. I know I write it as an equation, a mathematical equations. I don't have a define of variable. I didn't define it here on the slide as a variable. I just write it as a mathematical equations. And I would like you to give me the value and the data type of the value. This is exactly what you're gonna see on the lab test. I will give you the expression and I will ask you, give me the value for this expression and what is the data type at the end. Can you do it? Take half a minute. With the given hint on the top that the Java will do widening, but given that I cannot evaluate things, okay, and assign it because, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to say this is an expression with the widening concept in mind. What is the value and what is the data type of the value? You start from what? Left to the right? You have to be careful because division and subtraction is high priority. No. Multiplication and division high priority, addition and subtraction and remainders. So, what's the result? For the first one, anyone? Try. 6. So it's double. Okay. What about the second one? Value and the data type. Okay. So we're going to start from left to the right, given the priority in mind. So we're going to evaluate 3 divided by 2, then multiply by 3. That's the first part. Then we're going to jump to the second operand for the addition, which is 8 divided by 3. We're going to do what? Integer division. And then we do the widening because we see 3.5 as a double. Okay? So we will end up 5.0 as a double. We will end up with 3.1 as a double. Okay? So that's where you're going to explain to me on your answer, short answer, or you're going to write it. I'm going to ask you, give me the data type, double, comma, the value. And double here is with D capital or D small? D small, because this is a primitive data type. If you answer D capital, that means you are putting an object data type, which is incorrect. So you got 0. So D here is D small. I int, not integer, with I capital and a full word. Okay? Because we have 3.0. So once we have 3.0, the Java will understand we have a double. And we divide 3 divided by 2 as an integer division. It will be what? 3 divided by 2, integer division. Just give me the quotient, don't give me the remainder. It's 1. 1 divided by 3.0. 3.0 is double. So 1 is an integer divided by double will be double. So it will be 3.5. This is the first operand of addition. Then I'm going to go to the second operand of the addition. Is 8 divided by 3 is an integer division. 8 divided by 3, give me the quotient, forget about the remainder. 2. Then I have 3.5, it's a double, plus 2 as an integer. Java will do the widening automatic for me. It will give me the double as the result and 5.0. Okay? Good. Based on this concept, so we would like to test your knowledge. Given that the string data type, whenever we see plus, there is no minus actually with the string data type, okay? So we say that the concatenation has same precedence of a plus and minus of addition. But when you know that a string data type, what's the value for a string data type? A sequence of characters. What kind of operation on that data type is concatenation? So you can add or subtract a string? No, we cannot subtract. We can just concatenate string. So plus sign with a string data type means concatenations. And given that in mind, and given that the Java gonna do winding on the automatic, in your mind, give me the answer for this. 5x. Okay, let us take this answer for the first one. Wrong. Why? Not 5x. Why? From left to the right, the same precedence of plus and subtraction. I have int moving. Imagine we are moving from left to the right. Then I have a plus sign. What's the second operand of the addition? It's a string. I'm going to do wide. String is more wide than integer. So I'm going to do concatenation now. 1 concatenated with x, 1x. Then this is the first operand. Then there I have an addition. Then I have 4. Then I'm going to do winding again. Okay? What's the second one? Mm, 5. That's his answer, not 5. Because we're going to do from left to the right, the same precedence. This 33 is a string. And you can see in my answer, I did not forget the double quotation. Is that right? Did I give you the answer? I told you this is a string without double quotation. So in your answer, when you told me this is a string data type, don't give me without double quotation. If I give you 33, I put string data type in the front. Is this is string, comma, 33. This is not a string data type. This is an integer data value. Okay? So that string value always within double quotations. Okay? What about 4 minus 1 plus x? String. What? 3? 3x. What about the last one? Error? Yes, it's an error. Because we cannot do subtraction with the string. Okay? We're going to do from left to the right. Okay? Any question? Okay. So the Java typecasting, you can do that manually. I can tell manually how I'm going to do the conversion, but always this parenthesis is going to affect only one operand, not the operation. So here I'm going to go to the 12 divided by 5. Then I cast it to double. That's not true. I'm going to do what? 12 first. Then I'm going to do the division. Okay? That's the difference. Don't get confused. Always we're going to affect immediately the one on the... This, I give a clear instruction. Do the division first because I have the parentheses, and then do the conversion. So this will be 2.4, and this will be what? 2. Quickly this for you to test your knowledge. So if always we're going to affect the next operand. So we're going to go to the 2 and make it double, then we're going to evaluate the rest. Okay? So it's right only, the one to the right only. Okay, so this is a 3, this is will be 2.5. Here we're going to go to the 22, we're going to make it double, then we're going to divide it by 4. Don't divide 22 divided by 4 as an integer, then you convert everything to double. No, it's immediate to the right. So what is the immediate operand to the right is 22. And 22 will be casted to double, and then you do the divisions. The same thing for 22 divided by, because as you can see, they give you the same value. Okay? But what about the last one? You ask Java explicitly to evaluate 22 divided by 2 as an integer division, then you cast the result. Okay? Good. Okay.
You need a variable name from for the first one. For example, can we give false as a name?
Yeah, but false is one of the values of you cannot, because it's a keyword. Okay. Any other question? Okay, so I will do this. It's about calculating the circle. So this app is for you to see how we can define the data type and receive the data type from the input data type as a string and convert that string to double and calculate the value. So this is an app I created, and everything on this slide, you can redo this app by yourself by looking at this slide and redo it at home. So you have the design. This is the XML layout. So we have the title labels, okay? Then we have the text field where the edit text, where the user gonna enter the radius of the circles. And then we have the buttons to calculate, as you can see in the XML. And then we have the text view that will show us the area. Java code, as you can see, this is the main activity extended from app compact activity. And here is the things that I would like to share with you is it's better than to define what we call a helper methods that allow us to fetch the data or text from any user interface. As you can see, I set the content to text view. I give the ID as an integer, and I give a string as an input argument. And whenever I try to change any value for any text view, I will just ask this method by giving the ID and the text. And also get the content of edit text is this method. I define it only once, and then I use it in my code. And this is the code where you can see I go get the content of edit text R as a resources .id, and the name of the user interface value is input radius. So this is the name of edit text that I'm using as an ID. So that's why I was able to use r.id.input radius. Then I'm gonna fetch the string and convert the string to double using double dot bars double. That's will retain a double as a radius. Then I calculate radius times radius dot math dot by, and then store with the double, and then I print this string to the user and set the text view. Okay. Next lecture I will quickly demonstrate this for you. Okay, but you can create this by yourself. Okay, from the slides.